Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Hazel. Are you muted?
Is Hazel muted?
Yeah, she's muted.
Sorry, I'm just trying to cover up the sun.
Oh my god. Alright, I've got to fix this a lot. Everything is totally scuffed, so this is going to take me a minute. Yeah, Rich, you've got a little bit of time, okay? Don't worry about it. Okay?
Okay. Man, it's tough being 6'5".
Yeah. You know what's even harder?
What?
Being 5'6".
Shut up, dude! You know it's not true!
You're right, it's 5'8". Okay, she's trying to fix her thing, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, I'll wait for her to get back on a call, and then we'll be good to go. All right,
dude, I got this shirt for you. I got this shirt for you, but I decided I'd wear it today.
Let me see it. I'm tall. Wait, what does it say? I'm tall and I can't shut up. I'm talking and I can't shut up.
Yeah, I got it for you.
Really?
I got it for you.
Okay, never mind. I guess so. Yeah, we've got the frames are scuffed right now, guys. And Rich, by the way, you sent me the wrong frame for Hazel. You sent me the frame. It's the size. It's like this big. It's really small. You have to send me another one. Yeah, really.
Can you just scroll up in the thing?
Let me see. Can I? That's a good idea.
Be able to. I just copied it, but the reason I pinged this group was because they were already there.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I didn't even know it was there. That's like 300 IQ.
So now every time we have a guest who's like already been on the show.
Yeah. We just used the same group chat.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting it gets easier every day.
All right, we've got everything and it's good.
All right.
Okay.
As Hazel's getting set up, I just want to say
her mic is muted, and then we're gonna be good to go.
Yeah. She left the call. She's gonna join us.
Yeah, that's why we have the frames messed up, guys. This is actually not as bad as it usually is. Okay, so I just want you to understand this. This is a totally normal show. And
this is the first episode of a new show. Yeah. Everybody, welcome to Genshin Impact Craft, where we talk about one of the best games in the entire world, Genshin Impact. We're gonna rate all of the waifus on a tier list. We're going to start with Asmon's tier list, and then we're going to move down from there. We're going to talk about how you can win on a free-to-play account or how you can be a whale like me. This is Genshin.
You're not a whale,
Impact
Rich.
Craft.
You're not a whale.
What am I?
Super whale.
Super whale. I like
super
that,
whale.
dude. I like that, dude.
It's insane.
And here we go, our first ever guest.
Okay, let's see if we can get somebody in here.
Genshin Impact Craft.
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
Okay, let me go ahead and just set everything up, and we'll get ready and get started. How you doing?
Good. You?
Okay, I'm doing all right. Just been sitting around reading Reddit memes about myself being bald. So, yeah, it's been a really good time. Yeah, Rich is just loving it, man, because I was talking shit to him, and now he gets this chance to just laugh at me.
He called me short, which isn't true, and they called him bald, which is true.
Okay, that's great. All right. Well,
it's nice to make your friends happy. Although, Rich, I did spend 15 minutes today watching you stack up toilet paper rolls and do math earlier just to see what you were up to lately. So,
what was funnier, his bad math or how short he was?
I think the math, because he was so convinced. I think it was the confidence that really did it.
Okay, I see. All right, makes sense.
It was good.
You know, I do kind of have short man confidence. I do have a Napoleon complex a little bit. I have a really important question, though, Hazel. Have you played Genshin Impact?
A little bit.
Do you think that it's the best game ever?
No.
Do you think that it's worth spending $5,000 on?
Of course not. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances.
I agree. I totally agree.
What kind of question is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, who would do that?
Yeah.
Definitely not somebody with all the org money.
No, not yet, at least.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about something that we all know about, which is World of Warcraft. Hazel, really excited to have you back on the show. It's probably been a month or so since we had you on last time, and now we actually have some new stuff in front of us to talk about. We have the delays. We haven't talked to you since the delay actually happened. I don't think we've had an Allcraft since the delays happened. And on top of that, we also get to talk about everything that's actually happened with the pre-patch. But Hazel, I kind of feel like we should start with the delay. I obviously got to check out your YouTube video on it, but for anybody who didn't necessarily get to see it yet, guys, go sub to Hazel. But what are your thoughts on the fact that we actually do have a delay going into Shadowlands?
Great for me. Really good news for me, personally, just me. I'm thrilled because, of course, I want them to make a better game, and I do think the extra time is going to help them fix some of the issues that we might otherwise be dealing with for the rest of the expansion. But I'm just happy to have more time to do videos and to have it not be in the middle of like my busiest week of the month, and to you know, I want the raid. We don't know this for sure yet, but I'm really hoping that they delay the raid release as well, so that we have more than just 2 weeks between Shadowlands launch and raid release. I'm hoping for an early December launch and then like a mid-January raid release, so that there's more time to actually like get set up and get your fingers around it.
I'm kind of concerned about that. Like, I don't want to see like the Blizzard devs working overtime right during around Christmas. That sounds like just a terrible time. It feels like it'd be way cleaner if they just released the raid after Christmas, but we'll have to see what happens.
Well, okay, this is all, everybody right now, this is all completely speculative. When would they actually release, right? Because it was supposed to come out in what, like 2 weeks, basically?
Yeah.
So I feel like you don't make like this huge, giant decision for a corporation like Blizzard to actually push something back unless you're actually going to take time to finish something, right? Yeah. And I think, as we've all seen, even if you're new to World of Warcraft, the second that something like a pre-patch comes out, everything is going to be on fire. And like, that's completely normal, right? I think in a lot of ways, stuff like that, it's to be expected. To actually manage those fires and manage all the unforeseen things that happen anytime you release new content, you need to have people actually in the office to fix it. We're about to hit Thanksgiving. I don't know when Thanksgiving actually is. Is it it's a Thursday always, right?
It's always a Thursday.
So
that's all I know.
Is it the last Thursday?
I think it's going to come out first week of December. That's what I'm kind of expecting.
But then when would the raid come out, right?
First week of January.
Yep. I guess
perfect
that makes
world.
sense.
That's where I'd be at.
Well, if it comes out first week of December, they would actually have enough time, right? I'm assuming Blizzard employees probably by like the 14th-ish are probably out of there on break. So is that enough time for a release? Is 2 weeks enough time for a release?
2 weeks for what?
To like stabilize everything.
You mean like stabilize the expansion, then release the raid?
Yeah, and release the raid in November. I genuinely don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, people are going not at all. No. I don't know. Hazel, do you think that Asmon's timeline might be the right one?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like December 1st, or not 1st, but like the first 2 weeks, 1st or 8th actually are the most likely dates. I assume they can get the servers stable, especially because I feel like a lot of that, we just got over that with pre-patch. So I feel like that's going to go okay. But it's a question of all the things that are going to need to be hot fixed once they're actually tested by the tidal wave of players actually doing it before the raid in the World First Raid starts. So we'll see.
That's one thing that's like, I remember whenever the auction house changes happened and people were complaining about whenever they went live and it was just a complete clusterfuck. And the fact is, like, you have like 1,000 people testing things on PTR and then you have 1 million people testing them on live servers. So like, realistically, you're going to have some bugs in the game, and I'm totally okay with that. It's just how fast they get fixed.
Yeah, I think my biggest question is, launch happened, sure. But Hazel, when you actually looked at some of the systems that were getting tested before the delay even came out, what are you hoping is receiving the most attention right now? Like, what do you want to see have the biggest changes when we actually do see the finished product, or we do start to see some of the things that they've been working on behind the scenes now that the delay is in place?
To be honest, I am mostly flying on faith at this point. I have been just kind of looking at the dungeons and getting dungeon guides together. I haven't really been keeping up with the systems recently. I'm really happy with the Conduit change they did, the energy system. That seems better. I just hope that the Covenant ability tuning is good enough very soon so that people can make their decisions and not feel like they're forced to change their minds after they've already invested time in it. So I think making sure the Covenants are balanced enough, if they're not pulling the ripcord, they need to be at least close enough that they don't need to significantly mess with it like 3 weeks into the expansion when everybody's already a couple weeks into dailies and whatever.
I hope so, because I'm going Venthyr no matter what, and I don't want mine to suck. Like, apparently right now it's the best, which, based off of my experience in betas for the past, 10 years, means that if it's the best in the beta, it's the worst when it hits live. So I'm very concerned.
You spelled Allcraft wrong. I'm sorry, I just noticed.
No, I did not spell Allcraft wrong. Like, what? I spelled
Allcraft
Allcraft wrong. Okay, I spelled Allcraft wrong in the title. All right, that's Okay.
People in chat were spamming all Crarf. I was like, what are they talking about?
Look, I do my best, all right? I do my best.
There's no way he messed that up after years.
Surprise! Oh, look, I can fool you, man. How about that?
So with the energy thing, Hazel, I think that one of my biggest questions is, and this has kind of been every time that I get to talk to somebody who is happy about the change or saying that they like the change, I feel like one of the things I've been asking is, do you think that it's the right solution? Like, is this the place that you want it to be, or is it just better than how it was? Like, when you look at the energy system, are you like, oh, this is great, like I'm excited about the system now, or are you just like, okay, this is better than a weekly lockout, I'll take it?
It's better than it was, and I can live with it. And that's kind of the bar that I go for in my life. If I get anything above that, then that's great. But
yeah.
I do wish, and maybe this is true and I'm just confused, like I said, a bit out of touch with the Shadowlands systems. I wish that they would have the states connect to your spec, so that you don't have to worry about speccing one spec's soulbind like on a different tree or through a different path if you really want to hit the same spots. It may work out that you don't need to anyways. It's just kind of awkward to make them share, so that you have to choose between which spec you want to be perfect if they did happen to have any overlap. It's just an odd thing when, like, it's not like your talents or so many other things will change automatically with your spec. I don't see why we couldn't just get a clean slate with each one, and maybe it works that way, and I'm just confused. I hope so.
I would definitely be okay with that. I would actually stop complaining if they did that. I feel like obviously this is kind of like a middle ground with the Conduit energy system, and I read a lot of the comments and I kind of feel the same way, where it's just like, okay, great, now we have another system, now there's another convoluted thing that we have to keep track of and everything. And I do think that if they made it spec specific, that would give people more freedom to make decisions and changes. Like I look back at like a lot of times like Mists of Pandaria or like Wrath, whenever you didn't have like a lot of these like restriction things, and it did feel like you had more freedom and you could make more choices and do more cool things. And I just like to see Blizzard look at it from that perspective instead. I understand that like obviously they want to cut back on people switching between bosses, but how big of a problem is that really for like the average player base to change it for everybody else?
Yeah. What I want, and what I'm going to do no matter what they do with the system, is I'm going to figure out what my setup is. Same thing I did with Azerite gear. Get one setup, it's going to work pretty good, and I'm going to wear that for the whole patch or the whole expansion if I can. I'm not too worried about how often I can change them, because I'm not going to. I'm going to figure out what works, and I'm going to sit on that forever. It would just be nice if, like, I don't want to be in a position where I would like to change it between specs, and I have to either manually do that or just not, because they overlap. That's all.
Yeah, you just pick the best one, you go with that all the time. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, if this is the best in 8 out of 10 situations, then I'm going with that one. It's just the easiest and smartest decision. Like, I use the same talents for almost every single fight, and like, yeah, it's lazy, but it's just, that's me.
I feel like that's one of the things that I keep thinking about too, is there a clear-cut decision that just feels the best, right? Like, is there a certain way that you go where it's just like, yeah, this makes my spec feel really good to play, and I can just use it in most situations. I'm not thrilled that that's the route that I think makes the most sense to actually think about things, because when you do talk about multiple specs, obviously that's probably not going to be one-to-one unless you're really focusing on one spec. And then on top of that, some of these abilities and some of these routes that you could actually go, they were packaged on being interesting. And when you have a bunch of interesting options, it's kind of fun to play with them. Like when I play Genshin Impact, I like to play every single character in the game, not just one character in the game, right? And that's why Genshin Impact is such a great game, because it lets you actively choose how you want to make up your party, right? Like, do you want to go for an electric elemental resonance? Do you want to go for a fire elemental resonance?
Well,
or do you want to
you can go for anything you want as long as you spend $5,000, right, Rich?
Hey man, I'd rather spend $5,000 to play the game than have a weekly lockout on my abilities.
I have to agree with you there, almost. I'm just glad that I'm disappointed that some of the Conduit changes, like, I don't know, Hazel, if you saw this one, but there was one that made it to where it was the Theotar the Mad Duke that they made enabled at the beginning, and it was like the trait was like called like Sugar Daddy or something, and he would just pay for all of your transmog costs. And I thought to myself, like, this is brilliant. Like, whoever invented this is a genius. And then apparently they took it out of the game. I'm so sad.
Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Who is that gonna hurt?
I don't know. Apparently it's gonna it's that those are the kinds of things I like to see. Like if they want to make conduits and give them those flavorful abilities, that's awesome. But the problem is that like whenever you have, you have free transmog balanced next to 5% more damage in your main attack, like that. Like, what do you do there?
You use up all your energy to go back and then switch it every time that you want to change your transmog, so you can save yourself like 200 gold.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, 510. Yeah, I like some of those things though, like having something that affects cosmetics. It is interesting when you get to use multiple things, but obviously, depending on how you play the game, it might fall off in actual performance. My other question is, when we actually do look at some of the other systems, how do they look? There are a lot of systems like that's my biggest thing. When you actually look at a game, I think more times than not, you strive for elegance, right? The less is more. When you actually have something where you can predict how you're getting your power upgrades as a player, that's a good thing. When you don't feel like you're just running around spinning plates to spin plates, that's a good thing. But there are times in games where it does go the opposite direction. Like when you look at a game like PoE, that every single league, they add a new thing. So it builds over time. Are they able to grab as many new players every single time a new league comes out? No, because the game's really confusing. But what do? They service the players who have been there for a very long time. WoW's existed for like 16 years at this point. If they're going the route of trying to really put the hooks in the players who have been there a long time and not retain some of the more casual players or the players who aren't going to get as invested in these new systems, is that going to happen? Or do you feel like we are simply spinning plates?
Basically, yeah, okay.
So it almost feels like the old core gameplay loop, progressing your power by getting gear, has been kind of circumvented by how many different channels there are now. You want to be able to progress your character and get gear in Mythic Plus or in PvP or in Raid. And because you're not locked into any one of them, by nature you can get more gear, and it's just become easier over time for people to get gear, and that progression can be over very quickly. People can be pretty much optimal, more or less, pretty early in a patch these days. So it feels like that's what a lot of these systems are trying to patch over, is give you a way to feel like you're still getting something, you're still progressing when you continue to play over a couple of weeks. It's just a question of, should those systems be expansion specific? Should they be borrowed power? How many of them do we need? I feel like you could still shave, I said this last time and I'll say it again, you could still shave soulbinds and conduits right off the game, and I would not miss them. I think that legendaries and soulbinds serve the same kind of niche, and I don't know if we need both. We're getting both, but it just feels like a lot.
I kind of worry that a lot of these systems that they're adding into the game are going to end up alienating casual players because they're going to be so confusing. I worry about that a lot. It's the same with like having Pathfinder. I remember I was talking to a few people and they were telling me, they were like, listen, I don't want to deal with all of this stuff and having to catch up with all of these things. And if there are so many things you have to catch up with, when does it become a barrier to entry getting into the game and not necessarily an in-game progression system? And that's what my concern is with having all these things added into the game.
And to bounce off of that, the most important thing at the beginning of the expansion, like, let's be honest, every new expansion, a bunch of new players are going to come back. And even if the expansion is really good, you are going to lose those players slowly over time. There are going to be a few spikes that bring them back. When you look at Wrath of the Lich King, when the game was in that form, I think that game did a very good job of bringing people back, right? Because the Lich King himself was a drawing force at the end of the game. That's why I always like the on the box villain, because you play the game and you know that if you don't kill the dude who was taunting you throughout your entire leveling experience, you lost and he won. I thought that was something that was very good. But even when the game is in a strong form, a game like BC or Wrath of the Lich King or Mists of Pandaria, even any expansion that you like, you ultimately are going to lose players over time, and then they're going to come back with the next expansion. The most important thing, in my opinion, and I want to hear if you guys agree or not, I think it's all about the first impression for the expansion. The leveling experience is going to be the leveling experience, but what does the endgame feel like to the average player the second that they get funneled into that experience? In BFA, it was the worst that I think it ever was. I actually think that it was worse than in Warlords of Draenor. Whether or not you like Warlords of Draenor more, or if you liked BFA more as an expansion, I think that the first impression of that expansion was a rough one for multiple reasons. And I think a lot of the choices that they made on paper made a lot of sense. And sadly, the systems just didn't pan out. But the game was very awkward to understand if you were a returning player, when you look at different things like Azerite power, when you had the AP grind, when you just were changing some of the rewards that used to be very understandable to a player who used to play the game. And it just felt like they were funneled into a system that was very confusing to understand. And then once you understood it, felt very flat. And I am concerned with all of these systems that once again, we're going to have a really bad first impression of the expansion. And even if the expansion does pan out and end up being a really good one, you lost some of the casuals that could have become great players or could have become friends for everybody else who's playing the game. That's a huge detriment to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it is largely the fault of having a lot of concurrent endgame systems, because on one hand, when you do it when the expansion's first new, it takes you ages to get into everything because you have to tour every different system and get started and progress in them. But that at least gives you time to absorb them. And then when somebody comes back 2 expansions later, or not 2 expansions, 2 patches later, and they have catch-up mechanics, which is good because you don't want them to have to take 20 hours to get caught up. But then they're like, okay, you're going to Nazjatar, you're going to go talk to Anduin, you're going to go get your cloak, you can skip this, but you have to do this, and it's just figuring out where you even need to go to next is not clear, and you just end up kind of treading a lot of waters. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do agree that it gets a little too complicated. I wonder if maybe they're just not... I don't want to say not confident enough in the main gameplay loop of having, you have your world quests and your outdoor content, you have your dungeons and raids, you have your Mythic Plus. How long can those things keep the attention of the active player base, and how much more do you really need, and is that helping rather than hurting?
Well, I think that's why they're making gear harder to get in Shadowlands, is because how much gear do you get? You would get to like 470 or whatever, 475 item level in like the first month of the patch. And then what do you do after that? I'm sorry, but like hyper optimizing your gear by farming for like 5 hours for Echoes of Ny'alotha or 10 hours for Echoes of Ny'alotha, this is not a compelling activity for a casual player. Like getting better gear that has a bigger number on it, that's just better in general, feels good. In a way, I'm kind of sad they're getting rid of bonus roll coins because they were kind of fun to use, but I can see why they're doing it. I think they're making a great decision, honestly, with what they're doing with with Shadowlands and making the gear harder to get, and then also combining that with making the weekly box more customizable. I'm very glad to see that, and I do hope that just in time, gear becomes more of an actual reward to raiding, because I remember like in Classic, for example, the reason why some of the items are so memorable and so special is because there's not 5 other versions of it that you can get from every single raid. So I think that's one of the big things that Blizzard does need to work on, is making sure that the actual gameplay loop of getting gear is rewarding and it doesn't cap out too fast. It's almost like Diablo 3, where you get like 90% of your gear in like 10% of the time, and the next 90% of the time you spend getting the last 10% of your gear. It's very imbalanced.
Yeah, not a smooth progression system, right?
Yeah.
I think anytime that you actually do have one of those smooth progression systems, it obviously feels a lot better, which is not something that we've seen in WoW for a long time. And I think Hazel already hit on the head the reason that that's happened, and it's just because there is no scarcity of gear, right? And I think that one of the things that I will say in favor of a lot of the things that we've seen coming out in Shadowlands, all of the systems are a direct answer to something that everybody will agree is a problem in the game, like time and time again. It's just, instead of finding one clean answer, it seems like they've had to throw like 30 dirty answers at the problem, which might mean that's not the right answer, if that makes sense. Like I feel like instead of boiling it down and being like, okay, these are actually symptoms, and treating what's caused the systems to be that way, they're like, okay, yeah, like you're sneezing right now, we're going to cure your sneeze, when it's like, no, you got to cure your cold. And I'm curious if they dug a little bit deeper, if they had a little bit more time, that they could have gotten to the root of the problem, instead of just saying, okay, every single problem that we have, every tiny little problem that we have, we're just going to answer with a brand new system. Because they do.
You want to cure my cold now, Rich? Thanks.
Well done.
Okay, yeah, we'll only give you like 3 minutes to stop laughing.
I already stopped.
Okay, good. What was the question? So yeah, I'm kind of glad, like generally, like the way the pre-patch has been released, and overall, like it's kind of, it is a little bit demoralizing and emasculating whenever you would go back and do some of the fights that you would fight, like I don't know, like Mythic Gul'dan, for example, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go in there and beat his ass, and like this fight that you were usually able to beat, now you can't do it anymore. That sucks. But other than that, I liked seeing the smaller numbers. It's way better in my opinion. Like having the massive numbers like that is just I think it's trash, because it's confusing for players. Like small, simple, easy to understand. It's like you have $20,000, that's a car. You have 20,000 health, you've got a car's worth of health. Like what really is 540,000 health? Nobody has any idea what that is. So I'd like to see them go back to basic small numbers, and hopefully in Shadowlands, one thing that I really am looking forward to, or hoping that they do, is they don't start scaling things up by the ridiculous degree that they did in BFA. Like I want to see them be basic.
I bet you they will.
Yeah.
They always do. They really like a huge gap between how you feel to start. They like to cut you right down so you start the expansion feeling like you're just wielding last night's spaghetti, and then you start getting your gear and you start powering up really quickly.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the expansion, you're just stomping over everything, and then they just cut us back down again. I don't think we need the gap to be that wide, but it's certainly been the trend for the last couple of expansions that there's a huge gulf between a fresh character and an end game one, especially in the last patch.
Well, every patch is an expansion. That's effectively like the power gap. Like you look at like I guess like Wrath had big power gains too, but like BC and vanilla, like you have more of a power gain from like the beginning of the expansion, beginning from like one tier to another. Like I'm pretty sure Emerald Eternal Palace to Nilotha, like best in slot mythic gear for each one, it's like double damage with the corruption. It is insane. Like it's really fun to be able to break the game at the end of the expansion, and I think that's awesome. But at the same time, it should be because you have like really good gear or something like that. You've worked very hard for that gear, and it's something that's like it doesn't last. And it also doesn't mean that like Blizzard goes on top of that and they make it even better in the next tier or in the next expansion. Like that's the problem, is like I don't like, and this is like a weird thing, maybe this is just me, but I don't like having stat squishes. Like I feel like I've gotten up to this point, like now I have, this much health, I can do this much damage, and then I log on and my character sucks again. What do you mean? Like it's upsetting.
Yeah. I think part of the reason they do such big item level gaps and power gaps in between tiers is because they want to make sure that as you start getting new gear in the new raid, you feel like you're really getting somewhere. And I don't know if that's the right train of thought. I feel like they're underestimating the will of gamers to go do an entire new raid tier for a 2% power upgrade. They'll do it. It's not like you're going to stop raiding just because you can still get by in last year's gear. So I feel like you could do maybe not no squishes, but far fewer squishes by having much smaller gaps in power in between tiers, and everything would be mostly okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, they do a full raid tier just to get a 2% increase in power now. Like that's why people go back and they do Eternal Palace. So like you're exactly right. That happens already. I agree. Like I'd love to see them make just smaller gaps in power. I hate to see like during an expansion content become irrelevant. I think that's really sad. Like the fact that there's no real reason to do BOD besides the mount, no real reason to do Crucible, no reason to do Uldir, etc. I think that's definitely a failure of the system. And I'd like to see them make all of the raids relevant in one way or another. Like even in BC, there was no real reason to go back and do Karazhan, but you'd still do it for badges, and there was some sort of currency that you'd get out of it or whatever. I would love to see that come back and really be more of an incentive.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons that it did happen though is because you just had dissonance between some of the systems, right? You talk about how much gear actually does exist, and on top of that, now you have infinite systems which have rewards and have the widest variety of gear that we've ever seen in World of Warcraft. So how do you actually make some of those rewards intriguing in the other newer content? It's like, okay, just try to give it raw stats. It is the heavy-handed way to try to fix that problem. I'm hoping that one of the things that comes out of all of these new systems is a big change in that. And like you already mentioned, Asmon, taking away bonus rolls, I think starts to move in that direction. That's one of the things that starts to move towards scarcity of gear. I think one of the things that we haven't talked about, though, a system that I personally think looks relatively good, is the new legendary system. And they're putting like 200 legendaries in the game day one. Hazel, how do you feel about how the legendaries have shaped up thus far?
The abilities look really fun, and I'm very excited that we get to target them as opposed to the mess that was Legion. I don't know how strongly I feel about the legendary tag. I guess legendaries haven't felt legendary since the Draenor ring when everybody started getting them. It does feel just like another thing that's not as exciting, especially if they're not going to have super exciting appearances to them because we're like crafting them. So I don't know about the orange tag, but the actual mechanic in the system seems good. Especially because we're not juggling them around tier sets like last time. That was my old annoyance with them in Legion, was trying to figure out which combination of gear to wear for each fight to get my 4-set bonus and my best legendaries. And without tier sets, as much as I miss them, that won't be a problem anymore. So it should be okay.
Oh yeah, I think the legendaries were way better. I remember whenever they first added them into the beta, I think it was a good decision for them to do it the way they did. Add them in and they suck, and then buff them afterwards. Because I remember looking at the bonuses and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll use this one. Whereas whenever you look at the Legion legendaries, it was like, oh my god, I want to use every single one of these. This is awesome. So them buffing the legendaries and making them better definitely makes them more appealing in my opinion. And I'm kind of glad to see like what they're doing. I wonder if they're going to make it in Legion, or like it was in Legion where you were able to equip like 2, or like they'll make it more than that afterwards. I thought they were going to do that in Legion actually.
So. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, because in Legion, didn't we start off with just 1, or did we start off being able to equip 2?
We started off with 1, but if you finished your class order hall research, the bottom thing was getting 2 legendaries. So you could,
right.
Yeah, you were time gated on the second one, but you could get 2 theoretically at the beginning.
Yeah, the only reason I can think of why they wouldn't do that is if there's like some crazy synergies between legendaries that would make some classes more powerful than others that would require like too much balancing. But as long as that's not a problem, I don't see why they wouldn't open up more slots like in future patches.
The synergies look intended between the legendaries right now is one thing that I will say. Like it seems like they're very much gearing up to make it not like a weird 5-headed decision. I'm sure though that with how stuff always ends up working, it's going to be some weird 5-headed decision that is the cookie cutter choice that most people do make. It's going to be something that very well could be unintended. But even Preach was saying in one of his videos, I think that he put out a few hours ago, it's like, yeah, the synergies are pretty much right in front of us. It seems pretty obvious that they want these legendaries to be used with each other. I think that right off the rip, having something that you can target, but you still do have some freedom and flexibility with how you want to play the game is something that's interesting. The way that they're crafted is relatively interesting. Now let's talk about one of the places where you're actually going to be gearing up to get them, which is Torghast. How do you guys feel about Torghast now that we've moved a little bit further into the development cycle of what we expect to see in the Shadowlands?
Hazel, what do you think?
I haven't played it recently, but you know what I have played recently is a ton of Hades, which is a very similar concept. It's that same kind of roguelike, repeated runs, building different builds. And it's really so much more replayable than Visions, but with the same kind of reward structure that I'm pretty happy with it. I hope that we don't need to be there too long to get the basics for one legendary, because that's going to be a bottleneck point for people that just want to like set themselves up for PvP or like raid log on an altar, something like that. I hope it's not too grindy to get at least your first one, but as a gameplay loop that you're going to keep doing throughout the expansion, I think it's got a lot more potential than anything else we've seen so far.
I just hope that it's fun. Like, that's the only thing for me, is that, like, I know it's going to be fun at the very beginning, but then what about a month into the patch? What about 2 or 3 months into the patch, and you're loading into Torghast again? What is the difference between that and what you were doing the month before then? That's what I'm really curious about, and that's where I think Torghast is really going to be able to either succeed or fail, is they have to make sure that the content is continuously iterated on, it's changed, there's like some degree of affix to some way to add in some degree of interest to it, to variability. And if they do that, I'll enjoy it a lot. I think Torghast, if they do it right, I think Torghast has the equivalent potential of Mythic Plus, and maybe even more because it's solo content.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously like a lot of potential for the system, but a lot of my initial problems with it were I haven't actually gotten to play Hades, but I do play, and everybody's been talking about it. I actually think I need to try it. But with most of the roguelikes, there are so many different builds that you can actually go for. And you usually end up going into a run and you go, okay, I want to try this. I want to try X build. And you do what you can to try to make it happen. but the system throws all these random things at you, and all of a sudden you go down a completely different path. You have a lot of fun, and then the second it's done, you go, yo, I want to play again because I want to try to play that build that I wanted to play. And the fun of the system, it's not necessarily an overarching reward, even though now a lot of the modern roguelikes do have a meta progression system. Like if you look at like Rogue Legacy 2, right? You're building up your castle to be able to get higher upgrades as you move into consecutive runs. But the thing is what's really fun is seeing all the crazy stuff that does actually happen. When Torghast, you go in and it scales off of just secondary stats. It was a lot of it, and it was just raw power. And by the end, you one-shot everything, and it didn't necessarily feel as unique as a lot of these other roguelikes. And I'm curious, when you play a game like Hades, where you get rewarded just to play, will Torghast ever feel like that?
So a piece of info that I'm missing here is I don't know if Torghast has meta progression like you're talking about, and if so, how much? Because that's the thing that I think makes Hades really satisfying, is that it can throw you these completely random builds, like you're saying, where you end up with something that's either just really off the wall or like not useful, but you don't mind so much because at least you're still working on your meta progression with that build, and you're happy to try things and experiment because you don't feel like you've wasted your time altogether.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes it fun is the great variety of powers, which is only really fun because with that many powers, obviously it's very RNG as to what you're going to get because you only have 3 options per choice. And if WoW did that many powers, it would be much harder to put together the builds, which is only... Wow, this is a really long sentence, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you need meta progression in order for that level of variety to be fun. And I don't even know if Torghast has the variety in the first place. But
that was one of the things I actually talked to, I think it was off stream. I was talking to Asmon about some of the things that could be cool for Torghast, just meta progression wise, because there are some abilities that feel unique that it seems like if you take them out and make them meta progression instead, it might make it more interesting. Because when you look at Torghast, so many things are just like, okay, I'm checking this box, I'm checking this box. Like if you play a warlock, you're gonna get instant cast demon, right? Like it's never a discussion in your head whether or not you're going to get instant cast demon. It's not an interesting choice. It's so good. It's something that you really need to push the floors a little bit higher, and then eventually you just get all your secondaries. If that was on meta progression, then instead of making that interesting choice, you would progress as a player, and that would open up the way for more interesting choices to fill those slots when you're deciding on your anima power. And there are so many different things like that that continue to pop up, where I wonder if meta progression is something that should exist in Torghast.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think that having meta progression that incentivizes you to try things, even if they're not your optimal build, are fun because that lets you get more variety out of your runs. And the other thing that it offers is it allows you a way to eventually feel done with Torghast for a tier, which doesn't mean that you can't do it anymore. If you're having fun, of course, there's cosmetics to grind for. But I think it's important that it doesn't feel completely endless the same way some systems have been. And that within, however many weeks, the average player that just wants to be there to get what they need out of it can feel pretty much finished with it. And without that, it's hard to say how grindy it's going to feel.
I think that we'll just have to see what it's like once it's released, and then I think that's probably what Blizzard's waiting to do, is they're probably waiting to just release it and then just see what players want. Like, people have already been asking for leaderboards, and I know that's what they have for Diablo, and I'd love to see them add leaderboards into Torghast. That would be awesome. And then on top of that, I'd like to see them do other stuff as well, like different types of, some degree of meta progression. I don't know. Like, I feel like if they did another talent tree like Visions, it might be a little bit cheesy. But if there was some other way for them to give you like options and things that you could bring into Torghast to make it either more difficult or, more easy, depending on like, I don't know, the reward structure, I think that'd be fun. And just giving people more things they can do inside of it. I just hope that Torghast doesn't get released as a finished product, basically. I hope they keep iterating on it throughout Legion and like adding in new types of floors, because what I'm kind of worried about is that this happens a lot in Diablo 3, where you do rifts for a while or greater rifts for a while, and they become very repetitive because exactly throughout Legion. Did I say Legion? Okay, well, throughout Shadowlands. You guys know what I mean, right?
Dude, yeah, I love when you make like a slight, like it's one word and everybody freaks out.
Yeah, it's really annoying. And so, yeah, basically, I'd love to see that happen. And it would be amazing if they had some degree of progression like that actually gave you a degree of permanence in what you're doing throughout the runs. But it's just hard to balance that with making it more fair for people and like not just a grind like Visions are.
it's about variance too for
Yeah.
me. I think one of the big things with visions, for example, when they came out in Legion, they were really good at the very beginning. When you had things to progress through, when they were new and you were going for that power gain, they were very fun. By the end, they were incredibly annoying, and it wasn't nearly as fun because there wasn't variance, right? I think that the system itself was great. I'm glad that visions existed, and I thought it was really cool the way that they implemented them. And even as the product, you know, when Asmon starts to go to the idea of, I don't want it to release as a finished product. Obviously, you want it to release as something that's good, but you want it to be a system that continues to see iteration over time, evolve, and get better when it is something that's going to last for such a long time in the game. Even though we didn't necessarily see those iterations happen with the system of visions, for the end of the expansion idea to test some of the things out for Torghast, I thought it was a huge success as an experiment. And I do want to see some aspects of it make it to Torghast. My biggest fear is lack of variation and also having annoyances instead of challenges. I feel like that's one of the biggest problems we've seen in WoW, especially with the affix model. It's, okay, how do we make this something that players are going to play for a long time? How do we make it challenging? And then instead of actually making challenges, it's like, oh, you can't move, and it's just annoying. It's not something that really requires skill. It's just an annoyance in the game. It does slow you down though as a player for sure.
Yeah, some of the vision things are annoying as hell. Like, I'm glad, actually. I think that a lot of the changes. Rich, have you guys seen the and Hazel, have you guys seen the Mythic Plus changes to the affixes?
Not in depth, no.
They're good. They're actually good. They've changed them in a number of interesting ways and actually made the affix changes way better. Like, and I think that's one thing that they've started to realize is people gave this feedback with visions too, and they said, like, listen, like, this just makes, like, it's basically like, which way am I gonna get fucked this week? You've got some other weird thing. It's like, okay, well, now if I move forward and, you know, I get disoriented, well, that's cool because I have this other one that makes me move forward. So it's like, okay, great, now I'm just gonna get forced into, you know, getting affected by this debuff. It sucks. And so I would love to see a degree of that removed and have them actually focus on things that require a little bit more actually, like, skill. And the weird thing about skill is, like, some people would say that being able to move out of the vision stuff is skill. But I think that usually what it really comes down to for me is that I feel like a lot of the mechanics in, like, visions, for example, only really served to produce frustrating outcomes. And I think that Blizzard should try to look at making things actually more challenging and harder numerically rather than forcing frustrating outcomes, like getting disoriented or something like that.
So, like, DPS checks and healing checks. And...
Yeah, like, when was the last time we got an actual, like, a real DPS check? I'd love to see that more.
I usually think toolkits too, right? Anytime you're actually leveraging the toolkits, and that's why some of the content, when you do have solo content, I feel like it shouldn't be something. This is why Mage Tower felt so good, and it felt like a challenge and not an annoyance. It was accounting for the toolkit of the specialization. When you make blanket content and when you make blanket rewards, it's not a surprise that it's going to feel worse on some of the specs. Now, obviously, it's hard to generate content for every single spec that exists in the game. But when you come up with things like the Mage Tower that say, okay, you need to kick here, and this is something that's in your toolkit, and if you do it right, you win. If you do it wrong, you lose. Those are the things that people like practicing, and they like trying to get that reward.
Also, I want to build on that. Like, if you do it wrong, you lose, but oftentimes it's not something where you're just immediately deleted. I hate it whenever there's, like, this one thing that if you don't do it, it just ends the entire attempt. It just kind of sucks. Like, for example, Star Augur, Mythic. You do Grand Trine wrong, whole raid wipes. That's it, period. It's done. It's over. Like, I like it whenever they make things harder if you do it wrong, but it doesn't just immediately, like, end the fight. I remember, like, Agatha on the Mage Tower was a great example of this being done right, because every single thing, you could completely fuck that fight up, and being able to beat the fight, you would just measure it based off of how many things that you didn't fuck up. And if you fucked up less than 10 things, you'd kill the fight. And I like that. I felt like you were managing a lot of different mechanics, and it wasn't just, like, one thing that if you do it wrong, it's instantly over.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like they've already started to slightly change. Like there was a huge problem with that really in Legion in particular. And I do feel like they've done better with that in particular in BFA. Credit where credit's due. I think they moved away from a lot of those mechanics, and I hope that they continue to move forward with the trend how they have now. Now, let's talk about what actually has come out and what we do actually have in the pre-patch. Obviously, this is not everything that we're going to see in the pre-patch. We don't actually have the event now. But for anybody who, like, let's say, Hazel, that somebody just recently started, like, a new esports organization, and they were really busy, like, setting up all of that stuff, and they maybe haven't been able to play World of Warcraft since they... What would you say to that person about the things that they can expect when they finally do get to play the game?
So, you have, in the pre-patch, you got a level squish, you got character customizations. That's most of it. I think I'm forgetting one thing, but there's not a whole lot of actual playable content yet. There will be the Scourge Invasion, there will be catch-up gear from that, but that's not until later. For the most part, it's about alts right now. So, you know, recustomizing your characters, taking everybody to the barbershop, making new characters, trying out the new starting zone, trying out the leveling system. If you're not much of an alts person, oh, the third thing was class changes, that's right. So customizations, level squish, class changes, that's what's new, basically.
So the best feeling right now that somebody who maybe hasn't gotten to play yet is going to be logging in and selling all the gear in their bags, probably.
And Azerite gear now has a vendor price. So you can just vendor any unused Azerite gear. You don't have to shard it. You don't have to worry about Titan Residuum. I got rid of all of my Ospec gear, not entirely on purpose, but it's gone now and I'm not getting it back. Nobody needs me to heal until Shadowlands. It's fine. It's good stuff.
I want to talk a little bit about Exile's Reach. So I played Exile's Reach a lot when it was on the beta, and I thought it was really good. I thought that was a solid leveling experience. Have you guys played it since it's gotten thrown out into the live environment? And if so, what have you guys actually thought?
Yeah, I've done it 2 or 3 times so far. I love it. I'm still not bored of it. I've done 2 or 3 times on live. I probably did 4 or 5 on beta. So the one failing of it is about a 30 to 45 minute experience, and it is the same thing, almost the same thing every time. You do have some class quests to kind of mix it up, but there's not a ton of variance in how it plays out. So experienced players are probably eventually going to want to opt out of that so they have more freedom early. But as a new player experience and as an alternative for like Worgen and Goblin characters and Pandaren characters who already had long starting zones to contend with, it's fantastic, and I love it a lot. It's really fun.
It's good. I like it. It's interesting. There's like a couple of cool transmog items that you can get out of it. That's why I went and I did it again. And overall, I think that it's a much better new player experience than what we had before. It's kind of odd to think that new players are going to start the game on a boat instead of in front of, the little chapel in Northshire. But, times change. And I think it's interesting, and I like it. The quests are cool. There's like little flavorful things. There's rares. There's treasure chests. I feel like everything about it is exactly what like a new player would want to see coming out of, coming into the game. I mean,
I feel like it does a pretty decent job too at teaching new players how to quest and also teaching new players how to play their spec, which is important. And my bigger question for leveling, because Hazel, you kind of already alluded to the fact like the pre-patch as it stands right now, it is very much for alts. How do you feel about leveling in general? Because I saw like I tweeted out the other day just kind of asking people general questions, and everybody's like, I can level so fast right now. Do you think that they hit the cadence? Do you think that it's good how quickly you can level, or do you think that they should slow it down?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's going to vary based on where somebody chooses to level, and there's some weirdness that needs to get ironed out with how much experience certain things give. I was seeing huge discrepancies in gathering node experience. I was getting like 4% of my level per flower in Northrend, but then like 1/3% in a different zone. But it feels really good. The freedom feels really good. I know people want to be able to queue for dungeons from any expansion without switching their chromie time, and I think that would be a nice thing to do, especially because it's not like you can't go to those zones. It's just the dungeon finder that's limited, so that's a little bit odd. But I really like the leveling experience because there's so many different ways to do it. And while there's probably a right and a fastest and a speedrun way to do it, my plan is I'm going to level a bunch of new alts through all of the zones that I've never gone to before, because I can stay there until I have every last drop of transmog out of every questing zone in the game on every armor type. It's going to be fantastic. And one more thing that makes that even more fun, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I am 99% sure that they've freed up old character names that were being camped but not used, because
I
got all kinds of 3-letter names last night. I got some good ones. Yeah, that's me. That's esteemed boy right there.
That was literally my next question. I screenshotted that tweet. I was ready to ask you that one. It was the next question I wanted to ask you. So do you think that they did that just across servers? Because I feel like they do that pretty much every expansion, but to varying degrees. Getting boy is pretty wild, though.
I couldn't believe it. I was trying to demonstrate. There's like a new graphic in character creation where when you type in a name before you even try to make the character, it'll give you a little check mark for available or a little X for unavailable. And I was just trying to think of something that was obviously going to be taken so I could show people what unavailable looks like. And then the green check popped up and I just insta-created the characters. Like, no, that's mine. Taking it.
Must be
Fantastic.
nice.
I don't know how often they do it.
Yeah, I tried to make a character yesterday and I couldn't do anything. My stream just kept watching me, and any name I would think of as I was typing it in, they would type it in and immediately make a character called that.
Why didn't you just go full screen?
Well, because I don't know. I thought that I don't know. At this point, there's literally no reason for me not to. Like, you're right. There's no reason for me not to. I had Asmongold taken from me. Like, who's gonna use that?
That's a good name. That's actually a good name. I like, if you want it, we can talk, because I grabbed it so quick. What are the chances we can get? I thought that this was a really good tweet. This is from Venricky. He said, "What are the chances we can get essences unlocked for everyone, so returning players and alts can effectively participate in pre-patch? Expansion is over. Can we all just have fun?" Do you think that they should do something like that now that we're in the pre-patch? I saw a few tweets like that. I thought Venricky's kind of hit it on the head. Do you think that things like essences should just go ahead, have fun, let the players be players?
Yeah, I think the worst thing that can happen is that somebody who is really brand new to WoW gets kind of confused with all of these options that do all kinds of crazy blue, gold, shiny things that they don't understand and can't tell whether or not it's permanent. But I think that's a pretty small outcome, and it's like a temporary thing, and it would also help smooth over some of the inconsistencies with the level squish power, like how strong you feel, like you said, in Legion raids. Especially on alts that aren't as geared. If everybody just has like best in slot essences they can just try out, then that would help bridge the gap before we actually start leveling in Shadowlands.
I think that's going to be one of the things that's going to really define if people are going to enjoy Shadowlands or not in general, is these systems being applicable to alts. Like, I think that's been like a huge barrier for people playing alts in 8.3, or it was, with like corruptions and essences and all that other kind of stuff. And if you just made all of that stuff effectively account-wide, that you didn't have to refarm, I think a lot more people would have enjoyed 8.3 because they would have been able to play it from different perspectives. But the amount of time that you had to invest on each character to do something was way too fucking high. And if they just tune that down and they make it a little bit more account-wide, just in general, I feel like the game's going to be much more enjoyable for a lot more people. Like, the in-game systems are great, but not whenever you have to do them on every single character.
I would love to see them make alt catch-up work so that on a second character you can get to like 80% of your finish power in like 5 hours or less, and then the last 20% would take you a lot longer. But just let people get going without needing to crawl through everything all over again on every character. Like, I'm already dreading leveling all of these 50s to 60 unless that goes significantly faster on alts. Usually I would just procrastinate until the second or third patch when they add catch-up, but it seems like it's going to be really nice for running Legion content. So even just leveling second and third, fourth, fifth, 17th characters is going to be a big investment in the first patch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good to just be able to play all the other campaigns too. Like, just giving people reasons to play alts and like things that they can get excited about playing an alt.
I've brought this up a few times in the past, and I'm curious how you guys all feel about it. I genuinely think for some of the meta progression that happens, basically any type of progression that you get for your character that isn't gear itself, I don't want to make a complete blanket statement because I think sometimes this won't be applicable, but I feel like you should be able to progress your alts on your main for those systems. Like, let's say it's some sort of farm for something that's going to make your gear actually stronger. I feel like you should be able to do it on your main. My logic for it is because it keeps people having rewards for longer, so they play on their mains longer. There's more people to play with. And if the gear is still something that you're trying to get on your alt, you're going to be doing some of the older content to get that gear. I know that a lot of people disagree with it, but I just want to hear where everybody stands with it. I understand that some people do disagree with it, though. I think that it's very reasonable to disagree with it.
Well,
but the reason why I go that route is because I actually think it makes people play the game longer and allows them to play the game the way that they want to.
I think it's simple. Would I have played more classes? Would I have played the game effectively more in 8.3 and 8.2 if Essences and Corruption and the Heart of Azeroth levels were account-wide? The answer to that is very simply yes. So I, in general, agree.
Yeah. I would also be pretty much fine with that, or if we couldn't have that, because it seems like a pretty big leap. Something similar to what they did with Reputation in Mists of Pandaria, where you get to Revered, or you get the Reputation done in one character, and then you get an account-wide bonus that makes it 50% faster for everybody else. I could take that on every endgame progression system. Just make it twice as faster, 50% faster on every other character, so that even if they do have to reprogress, they can get through it much more quickly without having to wait for the catch-up mechanics to dribble in later.
So, like the Mists of Pandaria commendations.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. I totally agree.
When I said the idea, everybody in chat was spamming no. And then when Asmon agreed, they all started spamming yes.
Yeah, that's right.
It hurt.
It's the way it goes, man.
That's the way it goes. Really does hurt.
Well, look, I mean, like, to me, I just feel like in general, I want to see more of these systems be account-wide, and I actually do agree. I think that some of the progression systems that you're able to do that are max level are good. I think that it would be more fun if you had, like, for example, in Legion, your artifact weapon was able to be, like, the artifact power that you would get would be account-wide for all of your artifact weapons, or your Heart of Azeroth would be account-wide, or your Essences, all of these things be account-wide. I think it's important for Blizzard to make sure that even if something doesn't make sense necessarily in the lore, if it makes people want to play the game more and it doesn't create like an unnecessary, like why create unnecessary barriers? I think that's really what it comes down to.
One argument against just making it flat account wide is, say there is one class or spec or role that it is much easier to progress on because you're able to get into more groups, or maybe it just does more damage or it moves faster, whatever. You could potentially create a world here where the best move is to play a character that is not your main first as your main, because they have faster access to all of those powers so that you can then use them on your main later. You know, it could force people into playing tanks or whatever's flavor of the month that month to get their power faster on their alts. I feel like there should be at least a little limitation on it to prevent that from being your best in case scenario.
Oh yeah, I think like having the progression and the catch up things happen a little bit later on is definitely one way to make sure that doesn't happen. Like add them a little bit later on in the patch, because like that's effectively what you have in like Path of Exile. You have your, what they call it there is a league starter. That's the character that you don't want to play, but you know that you should play because it's really good to start off with. And I wouldn't really want to see that happen either. I think that's a good point. And overall, I think just having the catch-up mechanisms come in pretty quickly, or at least like more quickly, and be more widespread would definitely be that'd be enough for me.
The thing that gets me about them sometimes is it feels like a lot of the times we get these catch-up mechanisms for various systems patched in like a patch and a half later, and they're all like, we hear that you really want to do these things faster in your alts, and we've put our heads together and come up with a way to do this, as though that wasn't always going to happen. They're always so surprised about it. It's like, wow, people really want to play the game on alt still. I guess we better come up with a system, but it doesn't seem like very often we get them from the start. It always seems as though it's just this bright idea that they've had to ease the game later on, and it just always seems like it maybe sometimes they are planned from the outset and it's just phrased oddly, and they didn't want us to think that they had it all along and they were just withholding it from us because people would
but they were
that. But yeah, nobody wants to look that in the face, but the alternative is them just going, wow, you know, weird, I guess we do need something, let's figure it out, and they just patch it on later like it was never inevitable.
Oh yeah, it's like, wow, you know, the same feedback that we got all throughout alpha and the beta, it turns out that 2 years later you were right. Wow, this is crazy. So we're going to implement this crazy new interesting solution that happens to be the solution that everybody wanted 2 years ago. Oh, good. Thank you so much, Blizzard. Yeah, I think that those are the kinds of things that I want to see them just kind of like cut the time between point A and point B down. Like, I'm completely okay with them waiting a little bit of time before they make certain things account-wide. That's okay, I guess. But holy shit. Like, they should have done them way earlier. And if they had done that, I think that just in general, like in a way, I'm feeling like I'm getting played. Like they're adding these systems into the game and they're making me play with the dog shit version of it. I know I'm playing with the dog shit version of it, and I just have to deal with it for this arbitrary period of time. And it's like everybody knew that it was going to get fixed and better, but I just hate having to beta test things whenever it's actually the live game, whenever the solution seems so patently obvious.
Sometimes when you had that feeling in the past,
yeah,
I would always be like, take the tinfoil hat off. This particular expansion, there were a few moments where maybe we were both wearing tinfoil hats, but you look at a system like the Corruption Vendor, and it seemed very off. Like that one is one that still to this day, I can't fathom a reason to have that other than to artificially increase the amount of time that it takes to get the reward.
Do you guys know that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the guy pointing who's really angry, who has all the little pictures of different things on like a wall? Like
like the like.
Exactly. That's the way that I felt whenever I realized that the Corruption Vendor rotation was a little bit over a month. I was like, wait, wait a minute. What's going on here? I was very, very upset about it, man. I'll say that for sure. I completely agree. Like, I think that they just need to make sure that they don't make you play a bad system for too long. And I hate the feeling of knowing that you're intentionally playing a bad system. And like cutting that kind of stuff out of the game is going to make players like the animosity between like developers and players so much lower. Like we're already seeing with PvPers, like a lot of PvPers in Shadowlands are very happy. Like one thing we didn't even talk about at all already is PvP scaling is gone. They deleted PvP scaling. That's something, and it only took Rex Troy 100 videos. Yeah, he only had to make 100 videos about how it sucks for Blizzard to realize, oh wow, hey, maybe this sucks. So yeah,
the best thing to come out of PvP scaling, in my opinion, hands down, was Rex Troy's videos. Like those were the only enjoyable things about PvP scaling.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm very happy about that. And like doing BGs now, I mean, like, yeah, I still get one shot by another class. That's okay. But at least every once in a while I can do the same thing. You know, some dumbass kid that just comes back to the game ready to play Shadowlands. He's got like 8,000 health. That's a one shot with Reaping Flames. That's a straight up one shot. And it feels good.
Somebody in chat said Rex Troy one-shotted his own channel.
Yeah, it's about right.
Dude. Oh man, I am curious if there will be any scaling that does make it into the game at all.
Not at 60. I already tested it. It's gone at 60.
What'd you say?
I tested it on the beta. There's no PvP scaling at 60 either.
But world scaling is still going to be there, right? Like,
when did they add that in patch 8.2, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, what a cock that was. I was so upset about that. Like, how do you have what PvE scaling? Is it really a problem that people are killing the mobs too fast? I don't know about you guys, but like, remember back at the end of Mists of Pandaria where you could just like aggro as many mobs as you wanted? You could just like kill them all with your weakest spell in one hit. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
you know what I wish they would have done instead? Because I feel like the big problem is that people were one-shotting quest mobs, like the only quest mob, the quest boss that you have to wait 5 minutes or whatever for it to respawn. So people were having an issue getting their world quest done, or they show up and they're like, maybe I'm not in the right spot because he's not there. Just give them like a short immunity period after they're
like
aggroed. And I know it's a little awkward, but give them a little bit of an immunity period so people can tag them. You could also do this for world bosses and Tanan Jungle, mount dropping rares, make some people really happy. And then let people kill it, and then get rid of scaling altogether because it's just awkward and doesn't feel good.
It's really funny that you say that because that's literally the exact thing that they've done with Mists of Pandaria world bosses.
Did they do it for that?
They have that in the game now. It works for Nalak, it's for Shaw of Anger. I don't farm Galleon anymore, and it's also for Rindasta. Yeah, the boss takes 99% reduced damage for the first 5 seconds that it's alive.
Oh, if they could just stretch that out to like Doom Roller and the other
Vengeance
and
the other two. Yeah,
it's nice
right now.
I still farm Shaw, which apparently I'm not supposed to do, and like I have people like yelling at me for doing it now. I don't know what happened.
Why are you not supposed to do it?
You told people that I wasn't supposed to do it, and now every time I do SHA, everybody comes in, they're like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, this really isn't the right thing. You should be doing.
Well, here's the
like,
thing, Rich, is like, so, and this is the same thing. Like, Hazel, do you have any of the Miss Pandaria World Boss mounts?
No, I'm too smart to spend my time like that.
Exactly.
You seen those drop rates? It's rude.
So let's talk about the drop rates, Rich. So every single time.
I get it, but I like doing it. Like,
No, you don't.
that's it. Yes,
You're
I
allowed
do.
to have hope.
I like
No.
doing it.
No.
Like, I
No.
genuinely enjoy.
No.
It's an easy boss to fly to. Yes, I enjoy
No.
it. It's an easy boss to fly to. Everybody's all stacked up on their sky serpents, and everybody like gets all upside in. The serpents all wriggle on top of each other. It pops up. I like it. I actually like
every single
doing
attempt
that.
takes you on average 10 minutes, because let's say the respawn timer is 15 minutes. So even if you're farming it over and over, let's say you're doing it every 10 minutes, you take 10 minutes, multiply that by 2,000. How many hours is that? Then you take that amount of hours that you're spending, multiply that by how many gold per hour you can farm, or in your case, Rich, how many WoW tokens per hour you can buy, which is also my case too, so don't feel bad. And then just look at the math. Just look at the math, and that's assuming that you get it in 2,000.
I get that.
What I was
get
gonna say,
that.
and you're allowed to have fun, but you save up that gold, you buy it on the black market auction house.
That's right.
That's what
Fun.
he's saying, man.
I don't have. Here's the thing, right?
Okay,
Rich,
now
do
look
you
at
have-
it. Look at it.
okay,
Look at it
so
my way.
let's say
Look
you
at it
wanna-
from my way.
Let's say you want to hammer a nail into a wall. Is it more fun to hit it with your forehead? Maybe it is, but it's much more effective to use a hammer.
But what would somebody rather watch?
Shit.
Exactly.
You've got me.
And that's the reason why I keep doing it. You wait for the boss to come up, and what do? I pull up a video of you actually hitting your head on something. And everybody's like, oh, Pog, bolt. And we're all watching, and the boss comes up. Everybody, Ameno starts playing. It's like, do, re, me, Ameno, Ameno. You don't get that when you buy it off the auction house. I love it. I genuinely like it. You know what else I like to do? I run through ICC the whole time. I don't do a raid lockout. I clear my
you can't
ICC.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
Wait,
rid
I
of it.
can't. Wait,
Surprise.
can I still? Wait, can I still clear it?
Lockout sharing is no longer. You can still full clear it, but lockout sharing's broken as of now, as of pre-patch.
Yep.
I still have chances of invincible though this week, right?
Yeah, no, you're cool. You can still full clear the raid like you have been doing. Nothing changes for you.
It doesn't affect me. See?
No, you're
And
good.
that's the other thing. I'm completely malleable. They can't stop me. I'm so inefficient that they can't hurt the way I play the game. I was actually really scared that scaling was going to make it so I really couldn't get invincible. How are some of the old bosses? Like, is there a breakpoint right now with the Squish where you can't farm some of the old mounts?
Yeah. I tried to do Mythic Gul'dan today, and I got my ass beat.
Well, I watched your stream. I'm pretty sure everybody else is going to be able to get it.
No. Like, why?
Legion raids is that cutoff pretty much.
Yeah, right. What Rich is lying, guys. Like, Mythic Gul'dan is really hard. Like, it's no joke. Everybody was telling me these. I was getting triggered. People were giving me all this advice on like how to do X or Y thing. I'm like, what the hell do you mean? It didn't even work that way. And they just kept doing it anyway. And I was so confused.
Tips and I did 6 calls for OTK, and we kept checking your stream. It's like, is he still doing a 4-year-old boss? Like, yup. It was like, we did calls with everybody today. We got 6
great.
done, and you got 0 bosses down.
Oh, great. Look, dude, I got content, okay? I was using my head to hammer a nail again, all right? So, you know, who's really the smart one here? I don't know. Like, there are a few of those little things that are being changed, and I think that maybe Blizzard could nerf them a little bit, but at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Like, that's going to get fixed in Shadowlands anyway, and if the bosses are a little bit harder to farm, that's fine with me, because I already have the mounts.
Now, Hazel, we talk about how leveling feels with everything in pre-patch. What do you think the actual pre-patch event is going to feel like? Like, do you think it's going to be a good pre-patch event? I haven't paid much attention to it personally, so I'm curious what you're thinking about the rest of the things that are going to come.
Well, we've seen different versions of it, because at first they had the zombie invasion be just absolute chaos, which some people really wanted and some people really didn't. So that was fun. And then they took the fangs off that, and they nerfed it to be almost inconsequential, which made one group very happy and one group very sad. And then for the actual content, like the actual, like the old bosses spawning in Ice Crown and the Argent Tournament dailies and whatever, those, like, that quest line started long and then got chopped down because they thought they were gonna have to rush pre-patch. But now that we are having a longer pre-patch, I don't know if they're bringing back an earlier version of it. I am expecting it to honestly be a little underwhelming because it's just something we're doing while waiting for Shadowlands. It's very temporary. The gear is all reskinned. It's just gonna be a little bit of catch-up gear. It's probably not gonna be efficient enough to get sets of it to, like, kid everybody out. So I'm expecting it to be pretty forgettable, and I hope that I am surprised and it's better than that.
I think it's probably gonna suck. But I mean, it's, to me, I don't really give a shit. I mean, there's no way that you can beat the Legion pre-expansion event. Like, it was so cool. So to me, it's like, as long as it's not really annoying, I don't know, I'll be fine with it. It's not a big deal to me one way or another. And I don't know, I didn't really try it a lot on the PTR. Hazel, do you play Classic, by the way?
Only a little bit and almost never on stream.
Oh, damn. Okay, I was wondering if you were going to be doing the Nax testing today. They are testing
Absolutely
Nax.
not.
Absolutely
Under no
not. Okay. All right. There we go. I was just a little bit curious about that. It's yeah, very, people are saying very smart. Okay. That's what I thought.
See, that was so, I never did Nax when it first came out, right? So I didn't play Nax until Wrath, and it was one of my favorite tiers of all time. Even though it was easy, it was like the first time I actually started to be okay at WoW. It was when my brain finally started working. I was finally old enough to actually be good at the game. And I'm really excited to try it on Classic, and I'm a little bit nervous to test it because I feel like it'll ruin it for me.
It's gonna be a joke, man. Like, is gonna be a joke. Like, the bosses have like 3 mechanics. Like, Nax, they say Nax is hard. You're right. It's a lot harder because the AQ bosses have 2 and Nax has 3. It's a joke. Like, I remember, like, all I have to do is look at the videos and I know if it's easy or not. Okay, like, we'll see. I don't know. Like, maybe, I mean, in 15 minutes it comes out, so maybe I'm gonna just look like an asshole and we're gonna wipe 100 times on Vesuvius. That could absolutely happen, and you know, we'll see what happens. Rich, oh, by the way, do you want to start doing some questions then?
Yeah, so really quick, I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
So for after show, are we not going to do after show tonight?
We can do after show after the next thing. Probably it's probably not going to take that long.
So you're going to test Nax, and then I'll play Genshin Impact while you play Nax.
Oh god.
And then after, I'll play WoW, and we'll do the okay. So we'll do the after show after you test Nax. For now, anybody, if you want to send in some questions about World of Warcraft or Genshin Impact, we're ready to answer them. You can use the hashtag Allcraft, or you can use the hashtag OTK, because we're doing what we can to really take that hashtag back. We did not hire our marketing team in time, so I'm going to be looking at the hashtag Allcraft to start this one off, to see everything that you guys are asking right now. And this is a really good question coming in from Kyle. He says, how do you feel about Shadowlands being he said, how do you feel about, David just texted me. Oh God. How do you feel about Shadowlands being a more on the rails experience rather than a free form? Blizzard seems intent on telling players how to play in recent years.
In what way is it more on the rails than BFA? Is the part I'm missing.
I'm going to be honest. It was the first question I saw, and I instantly read it. I said it was a good question before I read the question.
It might be valid. I'm just missing some context.
Wait, Asmon's not here? I didn't even realize Asmon got... Did you realize Asmon got up?
No. He
didn't say anything either. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Can we get Chris Metzen to appear as a guest on Allcraft? If Chris Metzen had any way, like we had any way to get in contact with Chris Metzen, obviously we would have him on, but I don't think any of us know Chris Metzen, and we couldn't go through like a traditional channel to really hit up Chris Metzen, right? Because he's
What's the question?
Somebody asked if you washed your hands.
Why would I wash my hands?
Also, they asked.
We have a lady on this show. Like, we have a lady on this show. Come on, let's go to the next question.
Somebody asked if we could ever get Chris Metzen on the show.
We'll see what happens. All right, what else?
Have you tweeted at him before?
Probably, yeah. I'd have to look. Yeah.
Sorry, these are all questions about a game that David told me I'm not allowed to talk about for free anymore.
Oh my god.
David
Okay.
David texted me, he said, "Shut the heck up, dude."
Okay.
Man, these questions are weird today. What is wrong with you guys?
The chat has been, dude. People have been animals today. I don't know what it is.
There's an account that's called @smile_rich_, and it's tweeted at me like 8,000 times today. Can you smile, Rich? Can you smile for me?
I have a question for Hazel. What do you think's gonna happen? What do you think's gonna happen to Sylvanas?
She's up to something. I don't know if you read Shadows Rising, the new book.
Yeah.
She's up to something. She's gonna have a grand reveal. If it's trying to redeem her, I don't think anybody's really having that.
Yeah.
I have to assume that she disappears into the darkness eventually, because I don't think that we kill her, because that seems to be the whole point, is that she's over that. She doesn't like that one anymore. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think they write her out in some ambiguous way so they can bring her back like 3 expansions later after we've all forgotten about the tree thing, and then redeem her then.
Yeah, I feel like the whole thing where she killed Sarfang and burned down the tree, it's like she's just gone so far from misunderstood protagonist into the bitch category. It's like, I don't think she's going to be going anywhere. Like, it's just, there's no way that there's going to be a redemption for Sylvanas. I feel like it's not going to happen. What?
No, they started tweeting at me, "How's your dog, Rich?" Smiley face, and they're like spamming. It's actually like hard. I'm terrified. Like, it's such a scary day for me. Let's see if we have any real questions. I'm so scared. Now that corruptions are officially gone, do you guys miss it? I'm actually very torn. #Allcraft. I think that's one of those things that is interesting. Do you guys miss now? Because obviously your numbers and your damage rotation is going to feel different right off the rip. And when you've already had them, you're not going to think about the way that you actually obtain them. But do you guys miss corruptions now that they're gone?
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. Popping a TD and just going crazy. I thought it was awesome. I was very, very, very excited about that. But them getting rid of it is definitely probably better for the game.
Yeah. I was playing Shadow this past patch, so all of my corruptions, especially at the end, were just like haste and crit. Mm-hmm. So I didn't notice it at all, because you get level squished, you get stat squished. It just like the power change just gets rolled along with it. So I'm just glad I'm not purple anymore. Thrilled about that.
Yeah, that so was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, sorry. What did they make it so you can change how your shadow form looks?
No, I'm still purple in that way. I'm just, your corruption no longer visually affects your character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was one of those things where I thought that corruption it was cool, but I almost wish that it was like an unlockable thing or something like that you could apply to your character if you wanted to, or if you didn't want to. Like, I think more particle effects on your character would be really, really interesting. So this is from Bash Cutter, tweeted a Reddit post. It says scaling is still in the game. This is like, and then it's a post about scaling still potentially being in the game. Was there actually a blue post that said that scaling was taken out?
They did not, but there is trinket scaling. So trinkets are being scaled down, which is, I think, a good thing. So trinkets are scaled in PvP, but not actually your damage. So if you're dealing damage to a player, the damage that you see on your screen is the damage they see in their screen.
Okay, I see. So there's scaling, but the scaling is like universal. It's not going to...
Well, there's no scaling. Like, if you fight somebody with no gear, you do the same amount of damage to them if they had full gear on. Minus versatility, obviously.
So it's literally just trinkets?
Yes.
Okay.
Trinkets just generally do less damage in PvP. Like, it's really simple.
Good. Yeah.
Yes, it is a good.
So this question's kind of weird, but even though I don't think it's necessarily fully fleshed out, I actually think it's somewhat interesting because it does exist in the game, but I think it's important to talk about. They said, do you think that they should ever implement a new currency system aside from gold? Obviously, there have been other currencies in the game, right? Tokens, residuum, like there are all these currencies in the game, but I do think it's important to think about currencies in general. Like, obviously there hasn't been like another gold system, but there are a lot of different currencies in the game. It just depends what you're actually spending them on. People are saying platinum. What do you guys actually think about the amount of currencies that do exist in the game? Do you think that it's good to have a lot of these different currencies for different types of progressions, or do you think that they should scale it down?
That's fine.
I could take it being scaled back a little bit. There's a lot, especially in Shadowlands, that just makes a little bit of a learning curve initially, figuring out what all of these different currencies are for. And I don't like the problem you get at the end of an expansion where you just have like excessive amounts of early expansion currencies with nothing to spend them on. Like I am swimming in war resources and I have really nothing to use them on, and that feels kind of bad. But yeah, you can add platinum. You know, you can't gold squish, but you can give us a shiny one. Give us a diamond one. Just chip off bits of Magni. Let us pay for stuff with those.
Yeah, there you go. I think like the Blood of Sargeras that they had in Legion was okay whenever they made it kind of like they made it sellable in BOE.
Yep.
And like just having other types of like little items like that can function as currency. Currency doesn't have to be currency. Items can be currency.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about the complexity and difficulty of the new dungeons and raids coming up in this expansion? And do you feel that they will be harder or easier than what we've seen in the past?
About the same.
Difficulty is going to come down to tuning, I think, because the mechanics don't seem any more complicated. There are a lot of them. The dungeons do feel like they have a lot of mechanics in them, but I'm really excited about spending time in the new dungeons and in Mythic Plus and in the new raids because it just feels really good from the testing I've done.
Yeah. I think it'll be probably about the same. I think that we haven't really had like a big increase in like content difficulty since probably Mists of Pandaria. Like I would say in general, like the raids, dungeons are harder now, absolutely. But like the raids are about the same difficulty as they were then. And like I'd say there was like 2 or 3 different difficulty jumps. Like vanilla was like one level of difficulty, BC and Wrath was like another, and then Cataclysm was a huge jump up from Wrath in terms of difficulty. And then I'd say Mists of Pandaria was another like relatively big jump. And then we've just been kind of like slowly maybe going up a tiny bit, maybe about like 10% or so.
I would say Mythic Plus kind of invalidated the need to keep making things more complicated because affixes will do that for you for people that want
exactly.
This is a really good question because they've actually been doing it in some way or another all the way since Wrath. If they did it in BC, they may have done it in BC a little bit with stuff with Nether Drakes. I just can't really recall very well right now. But this question basically says, I hate how they use mounts as gold sinks. Do you guys think that having 500k plus gold mounts on the game is good for the game, or do you think that there will ever be like more 2 million, 5 million gold mounts?
I love them.
You love them?
I love them. Gold making is not fun for me unless I'm saving up for something. And they give me very clear things that I want that I can save up for that become a status symbol for gold makers the same way that mythic mounts are status symbols for current expansion mythic raiders. I'm hoping that there are more because it's a nice thing because it's cosmetic only. You don't have to have it, just like you don't have to have a glad mount. And it gives me something to work towards and makes gold into a valid progression system for me.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, like, the WoW token does muddy the waters. Like, it does, but overall, I agree. I like having things like that. What I don't like is the new Paragon mounts they added. The Paragon mounts in, like, 8.2 or whatever, where they were, like, 80,000 gold for a recolored Griffin. Are you fucking kidding me? Why? Why do that? Like, yeah, we have the long boy. Just have the long boy. That's fine. That's what I didn't like.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely weird because gold farming isn't what it used to be, right? Like when you play classic WoW, like gold farming is very much a part of it, and there isn't a token to muddy the water. I feel like that's my one concern about having those mounts in the game, but I do think it's a good point. I feel like gold sinks always have existed in the game. Do you think that there needs to be a gold sink? Like take away the fact that there's a carrot on the stick. Do you think that the WoW economy needs a gold sink to exist, or would it fall apart if there wasn't one?
I think that it needs one because you're
it
creating
helps with inflation.
Yeah, you're creating money out of nowhere. Like, where does that money go if there's no gold sink? Like, repair bills used to be the gold sink. Respecs used to be the gold sink, and now there's like hardly anything.
Yeah. It feels better to get something for your gold sink as opposed to just feeling like you have to keep paying your bills. And we do still have repair bills and whatever,
Yeah.
but it would really suck if those started getting to like, 5-10K per raid night. And you're like, well, that's just what it costs. At least I get to ride around a frog.
Okay. This is a question from Shroud. He said, imagine playing retail. What do you guys think of that?
Good question. The thing is, like, I would say imagine playing Classic, but I'm on the Classic PTR right now, and the servers are crashing. Like, I don't even know if we're going to be able to do Nax. So I would say imagine playing Classic, but you can't right now.
Good point. When are you trying to do that? Do we have time for any more questions?
We do one more. Let's do one more.
What system? Speaking of Classic, what systems or philosophies of Classic would you like to see the devs revisit in retail?
This is going to sound so stupid. Resistances in PvE raids. I think that'd be cool.
Huh.
Okay, okay, so that's all right. Okay.
I actually, okay, another thing that I want to see that I feel like I'm going to get I might even get a worse response. I think that hit should be back in the game. I think hit rating's good for the game.
Huh.
I like you, and I don't agree. I want hunter pet food to be more important again. I want to go fishing for snacks for my pets and feel that connection of, if I'm going to have kids, I may as well shop for them.
What if you had like you could fish and you give your dog a lightning eel and it would be able to do lightning damage? That would be cool.
Sure.
They actually have that system in the game. I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore.
That's great.
I do think, though, one of the reasons I bring up hit, and I understand why people disagree, but I'm the same way in PoE, for example. Like, I think resistances are good in PoE. I think that having a chore stat that you need to deal with makes the other stats feel better, and it's also a very strong tuning knob that allows gear to not have the item level bloat that you have right now. Like, we talk about that crazy item level bloat where you just completely clean the slate every time new content comes out. Hit is actually a very good way to not just dramatically increase item level every single time, and you can slowly have a more steady progression based off of the availability of hit. And it's not a thing that anybody, God bless you.
Sorry,
it's not
I'm just allergic to really bad stats.
The thing is, though, is a player shouldn't desire hit or want to like hit, but having as a tuning knob for the game developer and having a stat that you don't actually enjoy getting makes you enjoy the other stats more.
Yeah, I
actually think it's important for the game.
I think hit sucks, and the only time hit's valid or useful or cool is whenever you're talking about dual wielding. I think whenever dual wielding is applied, then yeah, hit is kind of cool because you're modifying your offhand's miss chance. But other than that, I think it's trash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there is a place for it in the game, but I think that disliking it is actually the right response of a player. Yeah. And I think that I like saying it. I knew everybody was going to freak out, and I totally get that. But guys, I want to give a huge shout out to Hazel for being on the show. It's always a great episode every time that you do come on. So thank you a whole bunch. And what's your stream schedule like for anybody who hasn't gotten to catch your stream before?
Sure. I am Western time and Pacific time. I do mornings, weekends, and Tuesdays, and then I do afternoons Wednesday through Friday. I do real short streams. I only do 2 hours of stream because I run out of stuff to talk about. So schedules on my stream. It's there if you want it.
All right.
Yeah, and also,
yeah, guys, make sure to link it in chat.
Yeah, I want to say as well with Hazel, definitely check out her YouTube channel. Like the weekly updates, it's by far the most. Look, you can watch some like bald guy talk about the changes that actually happened in the game, and he's going to take 8 hours to get through a video. He's going to be pausing nonstop, and it's going to take you forever to figure out what's actually going on. You watch Hazel's video, it's usually 10 minutes long. You actually know every single thing that's happening. I watch it every single week, and I know what's going on in the game. So if you're looking to actually figure out the news updates as they happen, highly recommend checking out Hazel's YouTube channel. And I want to say as well, thank you everybody for all of the support throughout the entirety of the week with announcing OTK. It's been really wild seeing all the support. And I also want to say thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Party. Thank you for making Allcraft possible every single week. Definitely check out Party as well. We're going to link all of Hazel's socials in chat, and we'll link everything with party as well. So thank you guys very much for this episode of Allcraft. Now we'll watch Asmon try 16-year-old content, and then a little bit later on tonight, after I'm done farming waifus and Genshin Impact, we'll do the Allcraft after show. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Hazel. We actually use your guides pretty much every single time a new raid comes out to learn about the fights. So it's been an honor, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of
I'll
course.
Come back anytime.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming. I'm going to go ahead, and we are going to get ready to hopefully not have to eat our words about how easy Nax is.
Yeah, well, you just you want to just call me on like my phone or on Discord when you're done, because I'm actually going to do paperwork until you're ready to do the after show.
Sounds good, man. I'll talk to you later. All right, peace.
Thanks again, Hazel. Bye.